This is Julie
Perfect.
Reeder, and I'm with Reader Media and Village News and Valley News. And we are interviewing today Aracelia Villa, right?
Vila, yes.
And where do you live, Aracelia?
I live in wonderful Miami now with very good weather.
Yeah, I bet. It's nice right now. And tell us your story. You immigrated here from Cuba.
Yes, I emigrated in 1961 after the Castro Revolution. I saw enough to know that I wanted to go out. I was the first one, along with my brother, who was even younger than I was. I was 18, and
Wow.
I was the first one to leave from my family because it was just before Castro was going to take the patria potestas away from parents, which means that parents would not make the decisions anymore. It would be the government. So 14,000 kids were
Wow.
taken in an airlift called Peter Pan to the United States and placed. Because I was 18 already, they wouldn't place me in a school or in a home. I had to fend for myself. Thank goodness I had friends. So I stayed in friend's house at the beginning. And then as soon as I got a job, which was very quickly, within 1 month, I got myself something that could be called studio, but hardly. It was minute, very basic, but I knew I was going to begin to receive family from Cuba, which indeed I did. About a month and a half later, I received a cousin who was 5 and a half. So here
Oh,
I was, 18 years old, taking care of a 5 and a half years old when I didn't know how to do anything in life because I
wow.
came from a rather protected environment. And then looking after my brother by phone, who was in kind of a prep school. They set up a special house for 15 Cuban boys. So I was dealing with his issues. I was dealing with my issues. I was looking after a 5 and a half years old. So I had to become an imperfect mother very quickly overnight. But you know what? It was very tough years, organized the exodus of all my family from Cuba. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
That's
It
right.
was sink or swim, and I swam. And I became not only stronger, but someone that has never doubted that I will not prevail. I became a survivor, in other words. And then I was in Miami when I came for 2 years, and then I got a scholarship to go study in Belgium in a very
Oh,
prestigious university in Belgium, but hardly no money, and you couldn't work in Belgium. If you were a student, it was a big no-no. You could not work. So I had to live on very little income, but those were wonderful years, cultivating our spirit and learning about a whole world out there. And so that went very well.
tell me, how were you afraid when you came to the US?
Well, it was heartbreaking to leave my country and my family, as you can imagine. At age 18, it was. And then here, everything was unknown. But you came. One of the things I discovered is that when you are in a radical, extreme situation like that, you have resources and courage that you have no idea that you had,
Yeah.
and that you will probably never have again. It's just the circumstances make you be stronger and courageous and
Mhm.
confident in yourself. It's a miracle of life.
Yeah.
Um, I did a little bit of underground activity against the Castro Revolution when I was 17, and it was the same thing. I lived a very protected life in Cuba, and all of a sudden I was taking some serious risk. Would I do that again? Would I want my kids, my grandkids to do that? Absolutely not. But in the moment, it seems natural. It seems that it's the thing to do. It's the right thing to do when you do it.
Right. Tell me, uh, how were you accepted when you came here? Did you see any racism or have problems with people accepting you?
No, and that's a very important question. First of all, there were quite a few Cubans in the same situation I was. So we had an immediate circle. There was some rejection in Miami of Cubans. Like you would see some buildings that would say, no pets or children or dogs or Cubans.
Oh,
but it was, kidding. I'm not kidding, but that was a minority. The majority of Americans we had to deal with couldn't be more welcoming, more supportive. So again, it's like life. You meet people who you don't expect anything from them and you get everything. And then others that disappoint you, but that's life. There was some rejection, as I say, but lo and behold, by and large, we were very much accepted and got help from the Catholic Church, from others. So overall, it was a positive experience, not a negative experience.
That's great. So what did you go to school for? What did you study?
Sociology. Well, my undergrad was in political sciences, and then later on the master's and little postgraduate I did were in sociology and family sciences.
So what did you do for a living?
At the beginning, I was academic. I taught in several universities in the Caribbean and in Europe. And for example, in Europe, I taught in the European program of the University of Maryland. In the Caribbean, I spent a year in Dominican Republic and 4 years in Puerto Rico. And then I went back to Belgium for a second round. The first time I was there 6 years, then I went back for another 5 years. It was when I was in Belgium for the second time that I abandoned the college, the university environment, and went into the business sector with a public relations agency called Burson Marsteller, which was the second largest at the time. And then from there, I came back to the United States and worked for a couple of pharmaceutical companies.
And did you get married and have a family and all that?
Yes, yes. Very important part. Before I left for Belgium, my boyfriend at the time, my husband, got also scholarship. We were both Catholic youth leaders in Cuba. So we got scholarships through the church. There was no way my parents would let me go to Belgium if we were not married. So yes, we married, had a happy marriage for several years, and things went sideways, but we had a happy marriage and 2 wonderful kids, a girl, the oldest, and then a boy.
Very good, very good. Tell me what you're thinking when you're looking at the news right now and what's happening with like the wall and our immigration policies. Do you keep up with that?
Yes, well, let me tell you a little bit background before I answer your question directly. When I retired in 2006 and 2005, I moved to California, retired in 2006. I became very engaged in politics in California, first with the Tea Party and then with actual campaigns. I was precinct district leader. So, I was very, very active. So yes, politics is a big thing for me. I have always been very interested. I'm really retired now. I'm not doing any of that, but I do follow the news. However, I have to tell you, in the last couple of months, I cannot watch TV because it's so upsetting. You imagine a person that left Cuba because of communist socialist policies and things. I love this country. You have no idea how much I love the United States and how loyal I'm to it. And to see that some things are happening again, it's very difficult to accept and very difficult to believe. It's heartbreaking. So I have to admit that I cannot watch TV now because it really, really, really affects me. And it affects me because I think we are in a month or a little over a month. The policies that are being adopted are very counterproductive for the United States. And because this is Groundhog Day for me, I have seen where these things lead. I'm very, very concerned. So to go back to your question, I think we're heading in the wrong direction on energy policy. I think we're headed in the wrong direction on immigration policy. That one is important because if I think with my heart, of course I favor immigration, but I favor, first of all, legal immigration. And second, is this the time for massive influxes of people? When we have 10 million unemployed, when we have a huge homeless crisis, when we have huge veteran problems, and we are going to open the doors and have an open door policy that who knows how many millions of people could flood in the next few years. And I don't know, I don't follow things as I used to follow them before, but I have heard estimates that go anywhere from 115 billion to $200 billion of cost a year. So that's just the cost factor in terms of welfare and all kinds of subsidized programs. But think in terms of the health consequences. So you and I have to wear a mask. We have to keep distance. We have to quarantine. We cannot do this. We cannot do that. We need to get vaccines. But then we're going to open the floods and let people in that haven't been tested. We don't know what diseases they're bringing. We know that they're bringing mumps. They're bringing measles. But what makes us think that they're not going to bring COVID also? So there is the welfare economic cost. There is the health cost. There is the employment cost. We have 10 million unemployed, and we're going to bring more million unemployed. And then last but not least, the security concern. When you have big influx of masses like that, look, they caught recently a whole bunch of Iranians trying to come in. So I think it's a very ill-advised policy that this new administration is following. But I'm also upset about the cancel culture, about the vindictiveness and persecution and censorship with which people are being chased. I'm concerned about the tax and spend and the corrupt part that is being put on the books again. But more important, when you look at it over a long period of time, all the institutions that make this country great are being corrupted. The military now, but before that, college, middle school, high school,
give me some examples of things that, like with the schools, maybe that you're concerned about.
Well, the kids are being, first of all, history is being completely obliterated.
Mm-hmm.
They're being taught that socialism is a good thing. Show me one country where socialism has worked. They're being taught, my grandson in a very reputable university had to take a course on, let me see if I remember the name exactly. It was something about whiteness, the perversity of being white. Excuse me, and the values. Kids are being encouraged to think of being transgender. That's something that is so irreversible if they get on that route. I mean, I will respect an adult individual and makes a choice, but when you encourage kids in elementary school to think about those things, and you know, the perversion of the history of this country, which is the greatest country that has existed. And obviously they are being taught to hate the country rather than to love it, support it, and promote it. So that has me very concerned, because there seems to be a pervasiveness of attitudes of American haters. Let's hate America. America is the worst country. Well, I have been in 70 some countries.
Wow.
And let me tell you, there's nothing like this. And it's interesting that the caravans come into the United States. They don't go into Venezuela or Cuba.
Yeah.
So, and the same happens in Europe. The same happened when the wall in Berlin existed. People came into the West. I don't know of people that were going into the East, and unless they were paid spies. So all of that is being taught upside down. So yes, I'm worried.
Yeah. Looking at the way Cuba was with communism and all that, one of the things that we worry about is free speech, for one thing, and then gun control and the education of our kids and all that. So before you left Cuba under communism, there was no free speech, right? Were you able to own a gun?
Okay. The revolution was January 1959. I left August 1961. So I was able to live 2 years.
Yeah.
So I saw how little by little the freedom of speech was taken away.
That's what I was wondering.
Press was confiscated. Journalists that didn't espouse the views of the government were persecuted. Some were killed. Some were thrown into prison. Some had to leave. But it was a progressive thing. The thing about communism is that it starts small. And then all of a sudden, when you realize what's happening, it's too late. Our cancel culture usually is nothing but censorship. It's just called different, but that's what's going on. And it's rampant in colleges. It's rampant now in high schools and elementary schools. There is a cancel culture, and they have found this very elegant term, but that's nothing but censorship. I'm seeing what I saw in Cuba. In the United States, it might take a little bit longer because this is a country that has more institutional stability that Cuba had, without a doubt. And this is a country where, it's completely different. But the process is the same. Mm-hmm. The tactics are the same. It's just here they're being implemented little by little. When you look at some of the nominations and appointments that are taking place, there are a whole bunch of American haters being appointed and Chinese lovers. And, so where do you think that's going to go? For me, it's pretty obvious. But as I say, for me, this is Groundhog Day.
What do you see could turn it around?
I wish I had that crystal ball. I am a firm believer that in history, in life, in countries, there is a lot of room for cyclical circles. I mean, what the Marxists call the dialectic. You have a situation, you go to one extreme, but that creates a reaction, and then you go to a new point in the middle somewhere. I have a lot of faith in the American people. So I like to think that the US is going to come out of this, but it doesn't look too good in this moment, I have to admit. It's more a question of faith than I can point to trends that I say, oh no, but this is very positive. So, because the voices of opposition are being silenced.
When I think of what could help us be stronger, I think number one, our immigrants are our number one secret weapon.
Yes.
Because we have a lot of immigrants here that have firsthand experience of what it's like.
And it's very interesting because, of course, we can recognize the signs before people who have never been exposed to it. Right. You cannot blame them. It's not their fault. It's that they don't know where it's coming from, but we can see these signs. I have to hope and think that there will be a renewal, that there will be a revival. At this point, it's not clear how it's going to happen. I would love to think that in 2022, we can regain the House and the Senate, not because I have that inordinate faith in the Republican Party in this moment, but because my cats are a better choice than what we have in this moment. It would be at least a wake-up call, and maybe a couple of years of great luck might not be such a bad idea. But my biggest concern is that they learn and they prove that they know how to rig the system.
Right.
And if that's the case, how do we overcome that?
Right.
Because now they know how to do it.
Yeah.
Look at California. California was Republican, and now I wouldn't want to call it even Democrat, because I used to know some very dignified and some very patriotic Democrats. California is up the deep end. When you look at the government in Sacramento and a lot of the decisions that are being made in big cities. So once they know how to rig the system, it's very difficult to undo.
Yeah.
And you know, Julie, I'm at an age and in a situation, I don't have to worry about myself. I have had a wonderful life and I have enough for the rest of my life. Nothing that they can do will hurt me. I'm worried because I love this country and I think it's a beacon of hope for the entire world. And I'm worried about what kind of world my grandkids are going to live.
Yeah. Yeah. The other people that I've spoken to that have immigrated from other countries, I've had, very often they don't want me to interview them because they're afraid. They don't want their name used. And they're, especially the ones from Asian countries, are very, very afraid.
Concerned.
And ones from Middle East too. I think from Mexico, not so much. They don't seem to be quite as afraid. But
let me tell you, I have Cuban friends in Miami that are very afraid and don't want to speak, because when you have lived in that kind of threat and danger, you're terrified of having to live again. But as I say, at my age, I'm 78. Mm-hmm. So at my age, what can they do to me? I don't think I'm at great risk. So this is not for me. This is for the country, for my grandchildren.
Right.
So yes, no, I have friends that would not have accepted your interview on a blue moon.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get that all the time. Is there anything else that you would like to add that maybe we didn't talk about, or?
No, I would just want to end with a plea for sound, wholesome Americans. And I know a lot of them that I met in my time in California, that I know here, that I have met through the years. There are a lot of very wholesome Americans who really mean well. Time to wake up, time to speak up, and time to see what's happening.
Oh, I agree with you. We've been comfortable for a very long time.
And you know, part of what happens is that this is human nature. This is not American or Cuban or Mexicans or Chinese. You tend to see, it's not affecting me, I'll stay out of it. But this tsunami, sooner or later, will affect everybody.
Yes.
So time to wake up. That's my plea. And be as good, as generous, as wholesome as Americans have always been. The most generous and the most wholesome people in the world.
Well, thank you, Aracelia. It's been
Thank
nice.
you.
It's been nice meeting you and talking to you.
Teresa spoke very highly of you.
Yes, she's wonderful too. Both of you are
Yes.
wonderful.
Yes. Well, listen, all the best luck to you.
Thank you. You too.
Anytime.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.